On Monday night, Joe Biden held a town hall event in Florida hosted by NBC. As you've grown to expect from Mr. Biden, the event was little more than a sham. It's been denounced by critics as an infomercial. Questions were soft, they played into Mr. Biden's strengths, and a competent candidate would have gotten away with saying nothing at all. Joe Biden isn't a competent candidate. Of his last town hall appearance, his answers were filled with untruths, exaggerations, and lies. That's why tonight we're going to be fact checking Joe Biden and showing you the worst of his lies. We are political. My name is Colin Allen, and I'm here with my co host, Ian Smith.
Hello, everyone.
And before we begin, please do subscribe if you're enjoying the comment. Give us a like if you like the comment, and give us a comment. Tell us what you think of the video, the issues of age. Why are you laughing?
You said comment about 4 times.
But you say it 4 times. Anyway, tell us what you think, and also tell us what you think of the visual revamp as well. We've put a lot of work into improving the experience for you, and we do hope you tell us what you think of it. Comment. So let's go ahead with the video. Let's take a look at the clips, shall we?
Yeah. So I've got a first clip here. This is Biden talking about the police.
I have had overwhelming support from police my whole career up until this year, as your husband will tell you. The vast majority of police are honorable, decent men and women who risk their lives every single day when they put on that badge and walk out that door. They have a right to come home safely. But there's bad apples in every profession. There are lousy commentators, there are lousy presidents, there's lousy senators, docs, and they should be, in fact, I can think of, I don't know any police department around that isn't happy to get rid of a lousy cop because it just reflects on them. And by the way, the same with the protesters. It's a right to protest peacefully, but once you pick up a bat and start smashing windows, once, in fact, you light something on fire, once you engage in violence, you should be arrested and held accountable. And I've never had a position different than that from the very beginning.
So I think, he touches on 2 things there. He's touching on the police and his support for the police, or he says he supports the police, and also he's going on and talking about the protests as well. So it's quite funny, and this clip has been, I've seen already a couple of articles on this. He's talking about, I had great support from the police up until this year. I reference it, obviously, that all of the unions have come in support for Trump. The funny thing is that there are some police that support Biden, and they have come out and supported Biden. But apparently, either he doesn't know or he can't remember their name, because it's just an easy one for him to say, and it would have been an easy one for him to say at the debate. Oh, well, I have support from this union, but obviously, he wasn't prepared.
Yes, absolutely. It just feels like lip service, doesn't it? Because suddenly he's coming out and he's claiming he has the support of the police, like you said. He's talking about the support of the police over his entire career. Yet when it matters, when you have riots in the street and you have calls to defund the police, Joe fell silent, didn't he? Like, he hasn't said a word up until this point. And now he's just expected us to take him at his word that he's always been, a law and order candidate. It's sort of rubbish.
It is, because think about back to the sort of beginning, mid part of the lockdown. It was hiding Biden in the basement, not really doing any campaigning. He had multiple opportunities to come and say something about what was happening to the police. We've got police now being gunned down in ambushes in LA. Obviously, they're just being attacked from every angle for just doing their job. In other cities now, being called racist just for just for daring to arrest a black man who's committing a crime. So if Biden truly supports the police, where's his support been during these earlier parts? He thought that it would have been bad optics for him to come out and support the police early on, and now that the riots and the Black Lives Matter movement isn't as popular, he's changed his narrative, and he's now trying to kind of frame himself as a little bit of the law and order kind of. This is what he does. He takes all of the positives from Trump and his campaigning and his message, and he just tries to replicate them for himself. But it just comes across as disingenuous because his actions don't back up his words.
No, absolutely, and he's had ample opportunities to target those in the Democratic Party who do support defunding the police and you have people in the Democratic Party who've called the police their enemies. Okay, they've drawn the line in the sand, and you're either with the Black Lives protesters or you're with the police. Joe Biden hasn't challenged any of them. He hasn't called up any governors and told them to take the help that the federal government has been offering. He hasn't made an appeal for Black Lives protesters to stand down. He refused to do so in a debate as well, and stand aside. He refused to do so in a debate, and now he just thinks he can snap his fingers and change the entire narrative. It's utter ludicrous.
Yeah, and here's the thing as well. He said in the debate pretty early on, "I am the Democratic Party," right? Well, if you're the Democratic Party, Joe, then exert some influence. People in your party are going around, like you say, they're saying the police are the enemy. They're calling to defund the police. And then, like you say, call up the mayors in Portland. Call up the mayor in Portland. Say to him, take the help from Donald Trump. If you're if you're a candidate of law and order, if you believe that violent protesters, at least they're admitting that they exist to some extent now, whereas they weren't really before. If you believe that violent protesters should be arrested, as he said, call up the mayor of Portland right now and tell him to accept help from the National Guard to sort out his city, because it's insane. It's £1 billion worth of damage now. £1 billion worth of damage. It's just crazy. So
utterly ludicrous, and you have to like examine. Does he not want to call them up, or can he not call them up? Can he not exert that influence? Because is there such a huge tumor of the radical left present in the Democratic Party, or does he not want to? Is he in league with them? That's the question you need to be asking yourself.
There is a tumor, and it's metastasizing and spreading, and
I don't even know what that word means.
Well, it just means it's cancerous. Okay, so it's spreading, and there's not really a whole deal that Joe Biden can do about it, to be honest. It seems if he was truly in control of the party, then he would be telling people, as you often do see in party, he'd be telling people, sending it down the line, guys, stop calling to defund the police, stop enabling the riots and the protests, because that's not what we stand for, and we can't be seen as the party that's for violence. But he doesn't. So I don't know. I just think it's lip service, as you said at the beginning. Anyway, let's move on from there. Let's take a look at another clip.
That is that everything's about division and hate. The reason I decided to run for office, I hadn't planned on running again. I give you my word, after my son passed, I wasn't going to run again. But when I saw those people coming out of the woods, literally the fields, carrying torches in Charlottesville, screeching that, if you close your eyes, remember what you saw. Their veins bulging, preaching anti-Semitic hate, the same exact language used in Germany in the 30s, accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. And when a young woman was innocently killed, what was the question asked of the president? What do you think? He said there are very fine people on both sides. No.
So this is I don't know if you call it, it's technically not live there, I guess, because he did say there are very fine people on both sides, but they know what they're doing. They're taking it completely out of context and making it look like that Trump was praising, Nazis. Biden says here that he wasn't even going to run for president again. Yeah, right. I'm sure he would have been running he'll be running for president till he would have been running to be the candidate till he's like 90, till he popped his clogs, because no man is more desperate to be president than this guy. I'll tell you now. So, but he said he was not planning to run president until he saw what happened in Charlottesville, until he saw, what Trump said. And it's like, well, if that was literally your reasoning and rationale to run for president, you would think he would be aware of the context of the situation. His whole run for presidency is based upon an uncontextual lie. But yeah, I mean, we've got the actual transcript of what was said, and obviously it's quite lengthy. I'll just go through it very quickly. So he says, well, I'll tell you what, this is probably the more important bit. So, excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo. If you had some very bad people in that group, but you had people that were very fine people on both sides. So this is the quote. You had people in that group. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people... I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally, but you had people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, and the press had treated them absolutely unfairly. Now in another group also, you had some fine people, but you had some troublemakers, and you could see them with black outfits and helmets and baseball bats. Of course, he's referring to Antifa, the idea, who all dress the same and have the same symbolism.
Not an organisation.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole problem is produced by this kind of unchecked radical left, isn't it? Because what they've done is they tried to paint everyone in Charlottesville as a racist, and then that kind of narrative has been transponded onto national media coverage, and now the kind of accepted view of events in Charlottesville is completely contradictory as to what Donald Trump says, which is the actual truth. If you listen to what they're saying about Charlottesville, everyone protesting the changing of history, everyone who didn't want those statues to be torn down, is a racist. Therefore, Donald Trump has logically condemned all racists. But that's just not the case, is it? We see it all the time. They try to paint everyone who disagrees with them as a racist.
Yeah, exactly. And, there are a lot of people who, when we're talking about these statues, and they'd be like, okay, they were slave owners or whatever, and that kind of thing. And I understand the sentiment, like, for a black person to be walking through a town or a city or whatever, and there's a statue of someone that's renowned for owning slaves or whatever. I get it, but the point is, it's not about going around and tearing down statues. And we talked about this before. If you don't want that, then fine. If you don't want the statue, then fine. But what you do is you petition your council, or whatever, or whoever it is, your local government, you say, we want to bring down the statue, we want to replace it with something else, or whatever it is. And I think if you are going to do that, again, the statues should be taken to, museums or whatever, exhibits, whatever it is, where it's going to be, so it doesn't feel as though they're trying to change history or change culture, as Trump said. So I think when he's referring to the fine people on the side of the people against the statue coming down, those are the people he's talking about. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being unhappy with a mob effectively dictating public policy.
It just feels very Maoist, doesn't it? Like you say, mobs deciding what bits of history we keep and which bits we conveniently delete. I think everybody should be against that.
Yeah, and this just, I think, I remember as well during the beginning of Trump's presidency, and this term fake news, sort of was coined, and I was quite busy with a lot of other things at the time, and I wasn't paying great deal of attention to everything that was going on in the news, in particular, obviously, in America. And I just thought, he's just calling them fake news because, they're being critical of him or whatever. It's like, no, they treat him so unfairly, so incredibly unfairly. I've never seen anything like this. This man has been elected democratically as president. Why do all of these media organizations continue to parrot the same rhetoric over and over, these lies? Oh, he refuses to condemn nationalism, white supremacy, or whatever it is. He refuses, he said this and that. And it's like, you go and have a look at the transcript, you go and have a look at what he said, and it's like, totally different from the picture that they're painting. And, Biden has the cheek all the time to say that Trump's the divisive one, or he's stirring up racial tension. It's like, no, it's been the media the whole time. It's their prerogative to stir up racial tension, because without it, they don't have stories anymore. It's like one thing to do with Russia. Oh, well, the Russia stuff sort of collapsed now, so we're going to go to a race war again. And they do it every single time before an election. They'll just start stirring up all the racial tensions and trying to make it out that anyone who disagrees with them must be racist, to try and disincentivize people, try and scare them basically into voting. So they're completely disingenuous, and Biden is being completely disingenuous again. And if he wants to attack Trump, he's always going about policy. Attack him on his policy then. But why continue to perpetuate these lies over and over again? Anyone can see, if they do a little digging, that they're totally untrue. So I don't know. I just
deep breaths. Deep breaths.
It's
do
just,
you feel good after that?
You know, it's really frustrating because many people will not do the research on this, and they won't actually go on. Well, let's go have a look. And obviously, the debate before, we were talking about that with the whole stand by. Anyone can see what he was saying. Anyone can see it. Why does he have to, every week he's got to come out and go, yeah, I still condemn, neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And it's like, we know. Why do you have to keep doing it every week? So, I don't know. Listen, it's just an awful, awful point for Biden to try and attack him on. But people eat it up and they won't know any different. And he tries and sells it there. He's like a salesman trying to sell that point. Oh, I wasn't going to run until this. Yeah. Unlikely. So... Anyway, so he's talking about coronavirus here. Anyway, obviously, I think this made up basically half of this town hall was just Biden bashing Trump on coronavirus. It was just a big infomercial, as you said at the beginning.
I heard you mention this idea of a national mandate.
Yes.
You've mentioned that before for masks, but what power does a president have to make that happen?
Beyond the federal property. I would go out and I would I would call all the governors to the White House. Some probably wouldn't come. And I'd call the governors and I'd say to the mayors as well as the county executives, take responsibility. Take responsibility and lay out the guidelines. Look.
So he's saying here, I think basically for the first time, I don't know if he said it before, he keeps changing his mind on this, but he's saying they've been going on about this mask mandate for a long time now, and I hear this all the time as a talking point from the left. When are you going to do something about this mask mandate? Why doesn't Trump force people to wear masks? He's just admitted there's nothing they can do, other than just people on federal property. That's the only thing that they can mandate. You can't go beyond state lines. And I've got another clip here, actually, where he's basically saying the complete opposite.
And say, because there's a question, I think it can be answered in the positive, a question whether I can mandate over state lines that every single state has to comply. Our legal team thinks I can do that based upon the degree to which there's a crisis in those states.
So he completely contradicts himself there. He's saying that his legal team thinks that they can do a mask mandate over state lines. And here he just blatantly accepts that no, there's nothing that we can do as the president, because it's well beyond the reach of the president's powers. It almost sounds like they want Trump to be a dictator now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite ironic, isn't it? Because Joe Biden probably has more influence than Donald Trump at that point. If we go back to before, why doesn't he call up the governors and the state legislature and just say, okay, we need to put a mask mandate in these states, because that's where the power lies. It's not with the federal president at all. And given the Democrats control the largest population in terms of governors, in terms of states, Biden probably has more effect than Donald Trump here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most of the states, obviously, that have got the bigger issues are, just because we know that's how people tend to vote along those party lines. The more rural areas that obviously don't have as much of a coronavirus issue because they're less densely populated, they tend to be Republican governors. Then obviously, look, New England and the West Coast, that's where a lot of the issues are, particularly obviously in New England, New York, New Jersey. So he says there as well, why don't you take responsibility? Well, hasn't Trump been calling for the governors to take responsibility for a long time? I mean, he's been calling them out. Obviously, in particular, Andrew Cuomo in New York is basically saying, well, why what the job that you've done is terrible. He sent the boat over there, the military boat, the basically giant hospital for them to use, and they didn't use it. They didn't use it because why? Because it would look like they were using Trump's help. I mean, how sad? How sad do you have to be? How is that really where it's got to that point where they won't take the help from the National Guard to bring a bit of law and order into their city because of partisan issues that they don't want to be seen as taking help from Trump? He sends a boat, a big giant hospital military ship over to New York, says, here you go. They don't use it. What does Cuomo do instead? He sends people back to the care homes. And you know what? A lot of people made that mistake because they didn't want to fill up the hospitals. And I get that. But obviously it was a mistake. Cuomo is now trying to rewrite history and say that it never happened. That's not taking responsibility.
And it really plays into that theme, doesn't it? The Democrats are politicizing every single thing about the coronavirus. You see it with the coverage of Trump's health, for example. They just, if there's a narrative they can spin on coronavirus, they will spin it because they're in opposition. They're not the ones who are responsible for this. And as you say with the hospital ship, if there's help there, they won't take it to score a political point. That's the kind of leadership we do not need at this moment to fix the virus.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And if they can't show here some kind of, bipartisan, agreement that, hey, this is what we need to do to improve the situation and save lives, then why would you want to elect more of those kind of people into power? I don't know. Because are they going to go and offer help towards Republican areas if they're struggling, or what? Because it just, to me, this just shows a complete disregard for the actual issues, the issue of coronavirus. They're more concerned, like you say, they're just politicizing everything. It's about how can we turn the optics against Trump here. If we, because imagine a scenario where Cuomo had accepted that help, right? And we're talking now, that's just another thing that Trump can say, right? He goes to the debate, they criticize him, the coronavirus. He says, well, what are you talking about? We mobilized the army and we got this big military ship and the big hospital. And then we were able, as the commander-in-chief, I was able to do that on the military level, right? That's what I can do as the executive, right? And you're the state governor. So it's your job to now use this help that I provided from the federal level to sort out the situation. They didn't do that because then that would have been a great point that Trump could make as a testament to how well what he was doing on the federal level. So it's just all completely dishonest. They have complete disregard for life. They don't care about people dying from coronavirus. It's all just empty sentiments and virtue signaling. That's all it has been this entire time. Because if you actually look what Trump's done on a federal level, what he can do, he's done quite a lot for a lot of these states, and they've been failures in their local response in the different states. So, listen, let's move on to the last clip anyway. We've got Biden talking about, he's actually questioned and scrutinized a little bit here on his record his 47-year record while he's been in office.
Mr. Vice President, though, the critics and Donald Trump himself will say that you had almost 50 years, working in government and legislation and as a vice president, and you weren't able to accomplish those things then.
Yes, I wasn't president.
He points out to the criminal justice reform bill, and you and Barack Obama served at a time when you had both houses of Congress and still couldn't get some of these things done.
Yeah, we did. We let 18,000 people got clemency.
So, I just want to play out as well. He interrupts the moderator. I've forgotten his name right now. The moderator. I apologize, but he interrupts him as he's asking the question. This behavior that apparently is so abhorrent that Trump is doing all the time, and there he is. As soon as he's facing a little bit of scrutiny, he's very quick. Oh no, I've got to interrupt you there. I've got to interject you. So it's a little bit hypocritical of him, I think. But moving on from that as well, this claim that he makes that 18,000 people got clemency, I mean, it's not even anywhere near close. If you actually look at the statistics here. The 18,000 number, just over 18,000, well, a considerable amount more than 18,000, really, close to 19,000 people were denied clemency, and nearly 2,000 were granted. So I guess he's just conveniently got. I mean, this is the thing with Biden. It's like when he gets the numbers wrong, it's like, well, did he? Is he just genuinely like that demented, or is he lying there? It's hard to tell with Biden. Like, is it an intentional lie or not? Because he just gets all of these numbers muddled up.
It's starting to appear like a pattern of behavior, isn't it? Because every time he's in front of a camera, every time he can say something, he somehow muddles up a number in a way that conveniently makes him look good. Listen, I think coincidence and profit collide. There is no coincidence. So I'm starting to think that Joe Biden is quite a dishonest person here.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about his record, you do have basically during the time that Biden has been in office, and obviously the crime bill, that we always go back to the crime bill that he wrote, it has led to this like mass incarcerated America. And I think, big part of that is obviously because a lot of the prisons are privately owned, and it's no doubt that they've probably been lobbying, for basically more people sent to prison for years. Obviously while Joe Biden's been in power, if he's written some of these crime bills that have led to it, it's no doubt, where a lot of the funding that he's got to become senator has come from. So I think when you actually do look at his record of a whole, and then you look at what Trump's done just in the short time that he's been in there, obviously he signed through the bipartisan agreement, which for the First Step Act, which has taken steps now to reduce a lot of sentences. I think it was like 2,400 people or something like that so far have had reduced sentences. Because they've committed non-violent acts, and you've got people that have been in prison for a long time, and they're elderly now, and they've been sort of released on compassionate grounds. So I think what we've seen in Trump's first 3 years here are steps to undo a lot of this damage that's been done under, not just Joe Biden, but obviously he's played a significant role. So what exactly... what the argument that Biden can make here, he can't make an argument based upon his record. It's like you say, he can only make an argument based upon lies that he just conveniently seems to keep telling and getting the numbers all muddled up, right?
And I think that more or less wraps up our analysis, our fact check of Joe Biden's performance in the town hall on Monday night. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Do please remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and leave a like down below if you do like the content. Thanks very much.